Welcome to Punk Love and Compassion. Tonight I have Jeremy joining me. Jeremy is from Birmingham, Alabama. He is a very talented man who wears many hats. He is a musician. He is the band Spirit Guardian. He's played in many other bands. He's a photographer. He's a dad. Great all-around dude. I am very thankful that he has agreed to come on and chat with me tonight or today, whatever it is. Jeremy, did I miss anything you would like to add?
The only other thing is the Iron City Sludge is, what I run and book my shows under. And so all my photos and all my show running. And I also run sound for those shows too. So that's one of the hats. That's one of the many hats.
And you do reviews under that.
Yeah.
As well. So you do like show reviews and other stuff. Yes, sorry, I forgot that.
All good.
Yeah, cool. So with that, for those of you, I know this is a new podcast, a couple things to get out of the way. First thing, main thing is I am not a professional. I don't know what I'm doing. I am embracing the punk rock DIY ethos and figuring this out as I go along. So there are going to be things that aren't perfect. And that's okay, because we are not perfect creatures. Hopefully they will get better as this goes on. The main thing I'm struggling with and learning right now is how to edit correctly. So please, as you're listening to this, don't be like, wow, this dude sucks at editing. Well, I mean, you can, but I do. It's true. Like, it's not going to hurt my feelings, because I do. It sucks. I'm not good at it. I'll get better eventually, so please just stick with us. Yeah, and like I said, I'm not a professional. I'm not a professional podcaster. I'm not a professional journalist. This was just an idea I had that I didn't see out there. Talked to a couple people about this idea, and through thoughts and plans, just decided to just go ahead and do it and figure it out as it goes along, because I think that people being honest about their struggles and their hopes, especially within the greater punk rock community, is something that is needed. But hopefully you stick with us and get something out of this. So with that, Jeremy, thank you again for coming on.
Thanks for having me.
First question for you. One of the things that really interests me about people is, and I realize I just said first question, now I'm going into an explanation of the question. Like I said, not a professional. One of the things that really interests me about people is like their entry point. Like at what point in time, and this is going to be a two-part question, but at what point in time did they become aware that sort of punk was a thing? And two, at what point in time did they decide, hey, like this is what I am? And my punk umbrella is very large and very encompassing. So I don't care really how you like identify. If you're like, oh, I'm a hardcore kid, or we all sort of fall under this greater, in my opinion, you can debate me, whatever, I won't agree with you. But this greater punk rock umbrella, and the community that has supplied for many of us. Now that I'm done describing my question, number one, do you remember the first punk song you've ever heard?
Oh my goodness. Well, first off, thanks for having me. I hope that, this is interesting for folks. I always worry about that. But yeah, when it comes to music, my journey to punk is very unusual, I think, because I grew up in a household where my dad was a huge Chicago fan. So I grew up hearing a lot of like classic rock and big horns and stuff. I would say probably, being born in 89, coming of age in the late 90s, early 2000s, definitely would have been, hearing some like pop punk on the radio would have been like my very first thing. But as far as things that I really kind of identified with that I think are within the punk umbrella, although there's different elements, is my older brother picked up Rage Against the Machine's Battle for Los Angeles record. And that was the first time I think I really understood some of the attitude and some of the higher thoughts behind what punk could be. So that was kind of my first introduction into that world, so to speak. I don't remember what song it was necessarily, because it was a whole album, but songs like Guerrilla Radio, and Sleep Now in the Fire are a couple that like still to this day still just are really important to me, and definitely were integral on me finding heavier music in general.
Yeah, I consider that the punk rock umbrella. Like, all those dudes had roots in punk rock. You know, like Zach De La Rocha's first band was Inside Out on Revelation Records. If you haven't heard them, I highly recommend checking out Inside Out. Just great stuff.
Noted.
But yeah, definitely they fall under the umbrella. Cool. So then at what point in time, like from becoming aware of that, were you like, okay, cool, this is my jam. I want to become part of this greater thing that I don't fully understand yet, but somehow it's gotten into my blood?
Yeah, really, that's tough to think about because that record was late 90s, so I was pretty young when I first heard it. But I want to say I didn't hear it until probably 2001 or early 2000 probably is when I first heard it. But really, when I started diving more into that is once I started picking up guitar, which I started playing guitar around the time I was 11 going on 12. And initially it started with kind of acoustic stuff because that was what I got, was initially an acoustic. And then after about 2 years of playing, I just started finding more challenging things to play outside of acoustic things, classic rock, punk stuff. I was obsessed with early AC/DC when I was younger, and whether people want to believe it or not, a lot of that early AC/DC definitely has some of that punk spirit about it, the snottiness, the imagery, the using things that were kind of counterculture at the time. So that was an influence for me too. It's really tough because like I don't really know what I am, and I'm at this point I'm still figuring it out every day, trying to figure out who I am and what I do. But yeah, once I started playing guitar, it was over, man. It was just obsessed with music, just absorbing anything I could and learning everything I could. And once again, being a child of the 90s, one of the real early punk band memories I have, of course, is going to be Green Day, because that was everywhere. So learning songs off of Dookie definitely kind of helped sharpen up some of those chops, so to speak. And then I also got into metal and all kinds of different stuff. But yeah, probably when I started playing guitar, honestly, that's really when I just was like, yeah, this is it. This is who I am. Started dressing differently. I went to a tiny school where there was 300 folks. It was really rural, very kind of redneck population. I very much am not that. So I was one of the odd men out in that scenario. And once I found the music and kind of found the artists that truly resonated with me, I just really didn't care about what other people thought. And, I guess you could say that's a little punk, but I really didn't care what others thought. I got in trouble at school because I was wearing, at the time I was straight edge, so I was wearing straight edge gloves, and I got in trouble because they thought it was some sort of gang crap. I'm like, no, I don't do drugs and I don't drink. Like all of these other people are here and go to church every Sunday and then treat me like shit all the time. Like, I'm going to still try to be a good person, even though I'm getting treated crappy by these people, and just be myself and really dive and live in that music. And I knew once I found music, like that's who I am at my core, is just a musician ultimately.
Yeah. And this is just out of my own curiosity. Mm-hmm. Were you wearing like this straight edge, like gardening gloves with the X on them?
I did. It was fingerless gloves, man. It was with the X's on them. Yeah. It was so funny because I was wearing, like I was into Slipknot. I was wearing Slipknot shirts and just baggy jeans. And everybody, of course, and being in a very rural area, that got me labeled as goth, which is not even remotely close. And I'm pretty sure they thought I was like a devil worshiper or something too, which is also not close, not at all. But that helped me find music overall. Once I found that, it was kind of unshakable at that point. I was like, this is who I am. The music is part of me. I am a musician. Screw what all this other crap is. This is who I am. I'm confident in this. I'm going to stand on this because this is what I love. And I was obsessed. I mean, I literally would I would get home from school, pick up my guitar, and I would play from 4 o'clock until it's time to go to bed. And I was very fortunate that I had supportive parents that were okay with that, But yeah, music and being a musician and kind of having that, fuck you, I don't do what you tell me kind of attitude, so to speak. That all came from learning guitar, really.
Like, I was never a musician. Like, I've been a vocalist in many bands, but like being actually able to play an instrument, I've never been able to do. So I've, participated in music otherwise. But yeah, like once like music hooked me, it was over.
Yeah.
Just consuming as much as I could. And sometimes it would be just going to a record store and just with no money, but just like, okay, let me flip through all the records, all the CDs, all, whatever, and just try to find something that, just looking at, album covers, like, let me find something that just hits me.
Yeah.
And makes me feel something. And then, I'll go from there and I'll figure it out. Like, I'll figure out how to get it or listen to it or whatever. And for me, obviously, that was all like sort of pre-internet.
Yes, the 1940s.
Pretty close. But yeah, and then the other thing that you said that sort of struck me interesting, going back to the straight edge thing, is that, in high school I was straight edge, and I'm still straight edge. And for me, straight edge has always been a very personal choice. Like, it's a decision I made for myself. It's not a decision I made for everybody else, right? And I know, different people feel different ways about it, but, that's how I feel about it. I don't care what you are, how you identify, whatever, it doesn't matter to me. But when I was in high school, I was X'd up. I had straight edge shirts. I had whatever. And I went to a pretty big high school right outside of Washington, D.C. And my high school was really diverse. So I had like all of the major gangs represented, but I also had like representatives and senators' kids going to school with me at the same time. So I had, I had the class spectrum.
Yeah.
At my school. Drug dogs would come in and sniff the school down, and it was an interesting place. But and I would wear a band shirt every single day, and the only time I ever got flack was when I wore a straight edge shirt, and teachers were like, "Hey, you need to turn that inside out." And there was one in particular, and it, on the front it said straight edge, on the back it was a picture of somebody drinking. It said, "Drinking sucks." Right? I mean, it was
what a terrible message.
Right. And teachers were like, "Hey, you need to turn that inside out." And I'd always like, "No, like, make me." There are kids walking down the hallways with pot leaves on their shirt, and you're not saying anything to them. But me, who's like saying, "Hey, guess what? You shouldn't drink. You shouldn't do drugs." Like, I'm the one you want to silence. And again, everyone's like, "It's gang related."
Yep.
What are all these X's for? And straight edge is gang and promoting gangs. Like, no, I'm not.
Yeah. So same experience. Exact same experience.
Yeah, in a very different part of the country. We're going to get off track a couple times, so just
I'm sure.
Be prepared.
Yeah, man.
With that, music, right?
Mm-hmm.
Playing music. At what point in time did you become aware of like that there was a greater community?
So that would probably be, I started working at Guitar Center about a month after I turned 18 in Montgomery. And honestly, man, the crew that I started with there, I'm still friends with most of those people to this day. Those guys are honestly, truly, really responsible for introducing me to some of my favorite bands. And it was all started there. So when I started at Guitar Center, I worked in the operations side, which is warehouse, back of house. But for those who remember, we used to stamp receipts at the front door. That's where I first started. But once, I'd been there for a little bit, I started working in the warehouse. There was two dudes, Will from the Abusements, who and Chris Eccles, who was previously in the Abusements. He played in he's played in a couple other bands as well. That are not playing right now, but But he's been in some different punk bands over the years. And those two guys, Will is, I want to say Will's about 10 to 15 years older than I am, if I'm not mistaken. So he was playing, No Effects and just classic, like there was Clash and stuff like that. So much No Effects, man. There's so much No Effects going on in the warehouse. And then Chris Eccles, his side was a little different. He had stuff like, I feel like there was some Fugazi, some Mondo Generator, Queens of the Stone Age, Caius, Clutch, like all of this different amalgamation of stuff. So those guys really introduced me into a broader world that I knew. And then through them, there was a really small DIY space, and this is in Montgomery, Alabama, that was run by my buddy Jason, who's now in the band Towering Above, is there out of Montgomery. But Jason ran a DIY venue called the Rabid Goat, was the name of the venue. It was literally a storage shed. It was a double unit that they had converted to a DIY space. And I went with Gloria, who my wife, and we were dating at the time, so she was still in high school, and we went to a punk show at this place, Rabid Goat. And we walk in, and I saw Will there, and I saw Eccles there, and there were bands playing. Snowgrove was in a band at the time called Flip the Switch. There's a band called Ball Swag that was just like snotty punk. I can't remember who else played that show, but I think that's really that kind of started crystallizing everything for me at that point, and seeing the connection and all these people. And so through Guitar Center, that's how I got connected to it. There was a great venue in Montgomery that was also kind of a DIY space called Head on the Door. I don't know if you ever got down the Head on the Door when it was there, but
I actually played at Head on the Door.
Oh, snap. I didn't realize. Right on, man.
Yeah.
What band was that? What band were you in at the time?
What band was I in at the time? Social Treason.
Social Treason. I don't think I ever saw that.
Was the name of the band. Yeah.
That's pretty...
no reason.
No reason to go any further.
Yeah.
Well, so it was really interesting. That was so Rabid Goat didn't last very long. I think, they got in trouble for running shows, and it was a BYO whatever space, so you had kids, you had underage kids, you had adults in there, and I think they just ended up having to shut it down. But Head on the Door definitely became more of a place once I got into... I joined a band. Now, it was not a punk band, even remotely. It was basically just kind of a rock band. But one thing that I really loved about being in that band, and this band was called Easy Kiddo. Easy Kiddo was just a rock band. But we played shows with punk bands, with metal bands, with all kinds of different bands, because we were all just part of the same DIY scene. It's all just local. We're trying to get out. We're trying to just create original music, something we care about. And it didn't matter what genre you were playing, you would still be supporting each other because it was part of that DIY community. So Easy Kiddo ran for about 2 or 3 years. I was in that band. We played shows Montgomery, Birmingham, all the way down to like Panama City. I don't know if we ever went north. I think we played Atlanta a couple times. We played a show or two with Random Conflict way back in the day. So Bill was super scary to me at the time, though, because he was like this legend of the scene. And now I've gotten to know Bill, and he's not scary at all.
So Bill was in Social Treason.
Oh, no way. Okay, cool.
Yeah. So when I first moved down here, there was a record store in town called Sunburst Records. I went in one day, and there was this handwritten note on the wall, and it was on like a piece of paper that was torn in half, just handwritten on the wall, and it said, "Band looking for singer. Interests must include, 7 Seconds, TSOL, Vandals, Black Flag, Minor Threat.
That tracks.
If interested, please call." And that was there's no name. It said, "Looking for a vocalist, must be interested in this list of bands," and a phone number. I took the number down, and it took me a couple weeks to call, because in my head, it's like, I'm going to call this number. It's going to be a bunch of 14-year-olds.
Right.
Right. So I called the number, and it was definitely not a 14-year-old that answered. And I was like, okay, this was somebody's home phone number when people still had those. And I'm talking to this kid's dad, and he's going to wonder why a grown-ass man is calling his child.
Right. Yeah. That's a sticky situation for sure.
Right. And so I said, hi, my name is Bo. I hope I have the right person. I saw this ad up at Starburst Records for a band looking for a singer. And so I'm calling. And he was like, cool. What's your name again? Bo. Okay. So you like List? I'm like, yeah. I listen to all of those bands. And he's like, where do you live? And I was like, I live in Huntsville. And he's like, okay, we practice at the storage unit. Can you be there in like 2 nights, 2 days? I said, sure. And he said, and have lyrics with you. I was like, great. I will have lyrics with me. I hadn't heard them play. Nothing. And so and the band was already set up. So it was Bill, a guy named Drew, and Drew used to run a venue in Birmingham. I forget what it was called. It was pretty big. He ran a venue in Birmingham, and it was and our drummer's name was Kenny. All these guys were Bill's age, but this was almost 20 years ago. So Bill minus 20 years, so they're still like 59 or whatever. And so I walk in, so they're there. And they all had another band too, bigger. And so then all those like kids were there, and they were all younger than me. And so I walk in, there's a crowd to watch us, and these 3 guys, and they're like, hey, we're going to play a song, sing along. Okay. Yeah. And then we were a band for like 2 or 3 years. But yeah, that's how I met Bill.
Wow, that's crazy, man. Trial by fire.
Yeah. And now he and I are in a band together again. But so with that community piece, because obviously you came back to another show, right?
Yeah.
Like that wasn't like, you weren't just like, hey, this is cool, but never again.
Yeah.
So what about that community piece like kept you coming back?
Dude, I was just welcomed immediately. Like everyone was open, everyone was funny, everyone was engaging. There were, there's these characters, these people that were larger than life, and it was kind of intoxicating in a way to be around that. Coming from, I don't want to say like really sheltered, but coming from up from the school I went to, obviously not seeing a whole lot of people like that, and then coming into this space where it's like, oh, like everybody's got long hair, everybody's got tattoos, everybody, likes some of the same bands, and everybody's just like, nobody's looking at me like I'm, the black sheep or whatever. It was like, just come on. Everybody was just accepting of me, and that acceptance, was the key right there, and something I tried to carry forward for whoever, at any show. I love music so much that it was so great to be around other people who felt the same way. It felt like kind of a kindred spirits in a way.
Yeah, definitely. And I think that's something, really unique to the punk scene is that welcoming acceptance. And that's something that really drew me in pretty quick was like, we don't care how you look. We don't care, if you listen to the same brand of punk that we do, are you a cool person? Yes or no?
Yeah. That was at the end of the day, that's all that mattered. If you weren't a shithead,
right.
If you weren't a shithead, then you're good.
Exactly. Even shitheads have their like little clique in the punk world.
Sure.
Too,
Yeah, they do.
but mostly it's like, yeah, as long as you're not a dick, like,
yeah,
come on, like hang out.
Yeah.
We'll figure it out.
Yeah.
And to me, that's a really special thing.
Mm-hmm.
And for me, I think that's what's really, kept me around, however many years I am into this. I think I went to my first show when I was 11.
Oh, snap.
I turned 47 in 2 weeks, so 36 years.
Yeah.
36 years, give or take.
Yeah, man.
Yeah, but still, 36 years later, it's definitely the community. And I've friends definitely all over the country and, all over the world because of just meeting at shows or, playing together, whatever.
Yeah, that's some of my favorite stuff, is like the people, those bands that you maybe see once or twice or 3 times a year that you're friends with. And it's like, as soon as you see them, it's like, there was no missed beats. You're just immediately happy, hanging out, and it's just that camaraderie. And, I can think of so many bands like one of my favorite bands, and I think you know them, is Triangle Fire, and they're based out of Athens, which I'm another Athens band. I got my beat up shirt on there.
Oh, nice. Yeah.
Yeah, man, those Nick and Tandy from Triangle Fire are some of the warmest, like most welcoming people I've ever met. And I've seen them, you know, in Birmingham. I've seen them in Montgomery. I've seen them in Nashville, which was really cool. They played my daughter's birthday a few years ago, which is really awesome. So, yeah, just that's the cool thing about playing music and being part of the scene, is you make those connections all over. And, you know, even if you don't see each other in person all the time, once you do, it's just immediate acceptance and welcome. And, you know, it's just all that stress and all that anxiety of being in a new place or whatever just melts away, because you got your friend there.
And I don't feel like they are performative relationships, right? No. They, like, the stoke and the excitement when we see each other after however long, you know, I feel is genuine.
Yeah, for sure.
Again, I just think that's rare in this world, where there are just so many, you know, especially with social media and, you know, whatever, just so much performative interaction.
I agree.
Yeah. And, like, I mean, I have friends, you know, I lived in Wyoming for a while. I was involved out there. And, you know, I have friends in Wyoming, and we like every couple of years, we randomly happen to be in the same place together.
Right.
5 or 6 years ago, I was in Vegas for a conference, and they were down there, like, celebrating their anniversary, and we just, like, ran into each other and then hung out for an entire day. Like, I blew off the conference. We're like, wow, you know, this is awesome. You know, and I've run into them in other places too. Yeah, just the honest, genuine emotion and relationships. And you don't really have to, for most people, obviously there's always exceptions to rules, but I don't feel like with most people you have to question their intent with the relationship.
I agree. Yeah, 100%.
So with that, I'm going to ask some questions, and if you don't want to answer, you can just tell me, hey, I don't want to answer. Not a big deal. Okay. Just going with that interaction with people, right, is one of the things I don't feel like we talk about as much as we should, is our struggles. And when we see each other, like, the stoke is real, right? Like, we're stoked to see each other. We're amped to see each other. But I don't feel like we are necessarily always honest in expressing, like, what we may need in that moment or what we may be feeling at that moment.
Yeah, everything's fine. Everything's good. Everything's been good. Everything's good.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think for a lot of us, not all the time, but some of the time, it's not.
Yeah.
Right? Like, it's not all good. It's not okay. It's not. And so part of my exploration with this is why? Like, why do we, if we value those honest interactions with people, and I promise I didn't, like, set this up, like, this has just been sort of natural conversation. But if we value that honest interaction with people, then what prevents us from being honest about ourselves? Does that make sense?
Yeah. You know, I think there's probably a couple things. You know, the one is that if you haven't seen a person in a while, you don't want to just immediately trauma dump. Like, hey, good to see you. By the way, here's my whole shit. Because that doesn't feel great either. So I think that's part of it. But I do think, you know, there's a piece where when we see these people that mean something to us in the scene and in the community, there is, at least for a brief moment of time, none of that other stuff is at the forefront. You know, we are genuinely in that moment excited to see this person, genuinely filled with that joy and excitement of being around them. So, but I think for a lot of people, it can be really hard to talk about when you are struggling, because you don't want to present maybe weakness or perceived weakness from others. Maybe you don't want to be a burden to others. All of these things, you know, are probably running through our brain. There's probably some self-doubt, or, you know, like, if I tell them this, are they going to think of me differently? There's a lot of different things that could motivate that. But at the end of the day, you know, most of these people, if you let's say, when we were talking earlier, you mentioned, losing a friend in the past year. And I think we've all lost friends to self-harm or accidental things or whatever over the years. And
Too
many. And we always say, if you need someone to talk to, come to me. Like, I would rather talk to you about that. But we hardly take up that offer, I see most of the time. So that is really kind of an interesting dichotomy. And I wish I had the perfect answer for it, but I would say that, we understand that everybody has struggles. Everyone. I think that's something, the punk scene as a whole, if you take a step back, there's lots of bruises. There's lots of things that have happened. You can see these people are not perfect people. These people have been through addiction struggles. These people have been through depressive struggles. They've been through financial struggles. They've been through it, but yet they're still able to give you positivity on the other side of that because they have the empathy for it. So I think we worry maybe that we might overload them. They might be dealing with their own stuff, and we don't want to add to their load if they're already struggling. So I think that's probably a little bit of it. But yeah, I mean, it's tough. Shit, dude. Like, everybody's got something. Yeah. I have kids and a wife and rent and bills. And, in the past 2 years, I've been laid off twice, which is, as the main source of income for our family, it was very challenging. And I will say, in those 2 times, the community that I met through music have come through so huge for me. They've been there to offer support in those moments and help me out. And people I maybe interacted with once or twice, even would reach out and offer or do this or do that. So, I do think there's a lot of genuinely good people out there. I think we just have a hard time broaching these topics because they're uncomfortable, ultimately.
No, I agree with you. And I don't think there is a perfect answer. I think it's a combination of everything you said and then some. And also, I think within certain, subgenres of the greater scene, it's stigmatized, right? Mm-hmm. So let's look at hardcore, right? And that scene. And historically, it's been very, male dominated, macho bullshit. And I love hardcore.
Sure. Yeah.
I love it.
You can love something and still criticize it. You can love something and still see what's wrong with it. I think that's something that overall, as human beings, it feels like has been gone for years now. It's like, you can love something and criticize it. And I think if you love something enough, then you're going to be more critical of it because it can be better. It can be this. It can be that. So that's all. That was my point on that.
No, definitely. I agree with you 100%. Thank you for making that point. Like, I grew up in the DC hardcore scene. I was going to punk shows and everything too, but it was hard to go to a show and not see somebody talk about something. I saw Earth Crisis very early in their career, talking about like their passion for straight edge and veganism. Like when I first started going to shows in DC, like Krishna was still very big within the scene. So it was not uncommon to have like, Krishna set up at the show and have a table or, stuff like that, or people talking about politics, like we're in DC, how can you not talk about politics in DC? Food Not Bombs and all, like, so people were talking about everything across the spectrum. There's a band from Boston that used to play DC quite a bit called Tree, like very like environmental, but like looking back on it, very like nobody was talking about mental health issues. The only band that I really remember talking about mental health issues was a band called Boy Sets Fire.
Oh yeah, I've heard of them.
Yeah, so they're out of Newark, Delaware. And the first time I saw them, their singer, like he talked between every song and I loved it. And he would get heckled, people like, let's talk more rock, and he'd like, fuck you. Like, I'm up here. This is my band. These are my songs. If you want to get up here and play music, get up here and play music, but you're not,
That's right.
And I just thought it was amazing. And she is in a new band now called the Iron Roses, who are fantastic.
Check them out.
But at the time that, and even up till recently, that is really the only band who I ever saw talk about, like I said, mental health issues, not just sort of the mental health umbrella, but some personal issues, right? Some personal things that we're dealing with. And yeah, I just think it's, and then you have like the self-destructive like arm of punk, like the G.G. Allin type stuff, which I never got into myself. I don't care if other people are, it never just rang for me. I think we all give a lot of lip service to, hey, if you ever need anything, reach out. Like, I will pick up the phone, I will be there, tell me what you need, and I will do whatever I can to get it to you. And I believe we are all 100% honest in saying that. But when it gets flipped to us, like us asking for that help, it becomes real hard and real difficult.
Yeah, being vulnerable is hard.
Yeah, and God, it's scary, and it's weird to me because like you said, we all struggle. And your struggle and my struggle may not be the same, but it might be the same as a kid in Fargo, North Dakota. It might be the same as somebody in San Diego. It might, it's like we are not 100% unique creatures. Like, all of our struggles will somehow resonate with somebody else somewhere. Right. But talking about them and speaking about them is challenging, and actually extending that hand out for help. And part of it, like, I blame punk for, and not necessarily in a bad way, but for me, I very much dug into that DIY ethos. And for me, it's like, I can do this myself. I don't need help. Like, I've done all these things my entire life myself.
Sure. I
grew up rough, but I never really struggled with depression or anything just until the last couple years. Like, I bought into the PMA mindset and positive mental attitude, just think positively. And I had my times where I would struggle, but it never lasted really long. Yeah, but then, a couple years ago, I did fall into this bout of depression. And like, once I realized I was depressed, which took a while, just made this sort of conscious effort and conscious decision of, okay, like, I need to somehow be honest with this.
Yeah.
And let people know that this is a thing and it's okay. I mean, it sucks, but
right.
It's okay to talk about it. It's okay to let people know about it. Because again, you don't want to be burdened, because again, we're all dealing with something.
Yeah.
So it's like, you're dealing with, everything you're dealing with. Well, I don't want to put my problems on you. Or it's feeling like, hey, no, like nobody's dealt with this the way I'm dealing with it. So nobody's going to really understand how I feel, because this is my unique struggle. And so nobody's going to understand what my unique struggle is. Mm-hmm. Or also, again, just the stigma attached to it, right? Like, because as much as it has become more of the norm, there's still very much a stigma attached to it.
Yeah. Yeah. It's tough because, like you said, there's this part of us that's like, I can handle this. I can do this on my own. I got this, because that's what you're used to doing, and while my upbringing was, I don't want to say it was rough. I mean, I grew up poor. I grew up in a trailer and with half the floors missing, and we had wild animals in our house half the time, but we always had food. We always had clothes. I was never homeless or anything. And, but I got out of that and then just started trying to work hard. But that was really tough, because that was isolating in a way for me at a young age, because, couldn't have folks over, couldn't have friends, and that made that kind of challenging. So I dealt with some depressive thoughts, I think, pretty early on in my teens, of that isolation and feeling, especially in my situation where I luckily did have a couple friends that were similar, I will say, as far as interests, but in a very small pond, I was one of the very odd ones out, and it felt very isolating at times. But the music, the community I found through music, and all of that just really helped. And I could talk to some people about it, But I think we worry. I do think there's this part of us that, especially as guys, I think it's probably more prevalent, that we are afraid by sharing this that we're going to think that people think we're less or weaker or whatever. And that's kind of your ego in your brain, if you're into like that stuff at all, that's something in your brain like, oh no, you're good, you don't need this, you got this yourself. And sometimes you do need help, you just do, and you need an outside perspective. And sometimes, dude, even just venting and just saying just verbal diarrhea of all the shit that's going on in your life can lighten the load. I'm very fortunate in that I have, my wife Gloria, my partner. We've been together almost 20 years. So that's a really freaking long time, and we've grown up together and we've been through a lot together. And the things that we've tackled together, I couldn't imagine doing with anyone else. I'm very fortunate to have that. So I do have an outlet there. And I have some other friends that I've known for, 20 plus years that it's mostly like, just kind of, we just BS with each other in chats. But every now and then it's like when real shit happens, we can do it and we can kind of talk about it and express it and give each other that space. So I guess my point there is I would encourage people to not be afraid to go to someone, because I think more people are open and receptive than you think. And I think more people are going to be willing to be there for you. And I think those really hard and challenging times as a human being that we all have, all of us, every single one of us. I don't know, there might be some of us out there that I don't think feel any sort of empathy or emotion at this point, just based on what I see in the news and shit. But
yeah,
for the most part, we all, especially I should say in music, I think musicians naturally and creatives are more empathetic, more open, more dialed into the emotional side of things and understanding that. So I would encourage everyone, don't be afraid. Go to someone. Go to me. Go to Bo. Go to whoever. I promise you, like, I'm always down to listen. I don't have all the answers. I have maybe some of the answers, probably none of them, but I would much rather listen, and I do mean that. And I guess that's my PSA right there, is like, don't be afraid. We should be okay talking with each other, because life is really fucking hard. Life is weird.
Yeah.
Life is crazy. You never know what's going to happen. And it doesn't stop for anyone, really. So we're all going through this. We're all on the same little blue marble spinning around. We're all human. Yeah. We're all human beings. Even if somebody another country is looking at this and maybe they don't even speak English, they still feel the same emotions we do. To your point earlier, everyone, that's a human thing. We all share these emotions, no matter what language you speak, no matter where you come from, no matter your background. We all have this. So don't be afraid. It's going to be scary as shit, because you have all this doubt. But I promise that sharing with someone does lighten the load, even if they don't have anything else to offer you other than a listening ear. Like, you will feel better. And sometimes just saying the thing out loud, you hear it differently because you've been internalizing it in your brain. Saying the words out loud, for me, a lot of times helps me go, oh, okay, like, I see this differently now that I've actually said it. I've actually verbalized these thoughts.
Yeah.
And it gives me a different perception of it, I guess. Long rant over.
No, definitely. I think you hit on a couple good things. Is one, just sharing. So one of the things I did and do, because sometimes I don't want feedback. Like, I just need to get what's in out. And so I'll get with somebody. I'm like, look, I just need to talk, and I don't want any feedback. Like, I know you're going to want to help me problem solve this. I don't want to problem solve right now. I just need to get everything that's in out. And that's been very helpful for me. And then, and just depending on the person, like, they'll let me get everything out, and then, some will say, okay, well, do you want feedback now, or do you want to talk about it?
Right.
Sometimes I'm like, yeah, now I'm ready for feedback. I wasn't ready then. I'm ready now. And sometimes it's just like, you know what? No, like I just needed to get it out. It's out and I'm good. Thank you for listening.
Yeah.
And I think people need to realize that there are so many people who are just willing to listen.
Yes.
You know, and it is important to get it out. And also for me, like music is a huge release for me.
Yes. 100%. It's such an outlet for so many different emotions or whatever you're going through. I can't tell you how many days have been like shit days, and I can pick up a guitar or sit at a keyboard or pick up the banjo or whatever and just pluck around, and I start to feel that stuff melt away. You know, it's just, it kind of resets something to do that. And whether it's lyrics or whatever, like expressing yourself in some form or fashion, I think is just beneficial for everyone.
Oh, definitely. Yeah, I'm one of the other people I interviewed. Again, just talking about sort of depression and being overwhelmed and all that stuff. We were talking about tools that we use to help us work through it. And so she and I, she's from Colorado, her name's Sarah. She and I, we crafted during this interview, and we made, she called them cootie catchers. I grew up calling them fortune tellers.
Mm-hmm. But, I know what you're talking about. It's the little four. Cool. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So we crafted those during our conversation, interview, whatever. And what she uses them for is like under each like flap you would open, she divides it in half. So half of the flaps are tasks that need to be completed and broken down into like 10-minute sections. So if the entire kitchen needs to be cleaned, but that's overwhelming for mm-hmm. you, it's like, okay, like clean the counters, clean the dishes, sweep, just broken down into really small tasks. And then the other half of the flaps are like fun rewards. Again, broken down into like, 10, 15-minute chunks. And you never know what you're going to get. So it could be, okay, I have to do a task. Now I have a fun thing to do. Or it's like, oh, task. Oh, another task. Oh, another task. Oh, now I get a fun thing, right? But it breaks it down into more manageable.
Yeah. Digestible bites is what I call that.
Right. But even doing that, going back to sort of what we talked about music, right? That it's still being creative within your dysfunction.
Yes.
Oh, I don't have it sitting here. Yeah, it's right here. Right. So.
Oh, nice.
Right. So, and we color them we colored it, put like designs on it. So again, it's not just folding this thing. It's being creative mm-hmm. as well. So it's still, even if it's just creating something for yourself to enjoy
yeah.
or for yourself yeah. to cope. And I think that's the other piece of it too, is figuring out and being aware of like what gets you out of bed in the morning, and what gives you hope. Because I think when we are sort of at our most whatever, it's hard to
see that light.
It's very, very hard to see that light. And I strongly believe that light's always there, even if we can't always see it. I firmly believe that light is always there. It's just, and for some of us, it's a lot harder to see it or even to believe it exists than for others.
I want to share something.
Please.
And this is, I know it's ridiculous because it just is, but it's relative. About 2017, or maybe it was 2018. I can't remember. You've heard of Andrew WK, the musician, I'm sure. Everybody knows Andrew WK for, the party songs, right? And all of that stuff.
Right.
So some fun...
But he's also a really awesome dude.
From what I've heard, yes. I've never had a chance to meet him, but he also did motivational speaking tours as well. That was part of something that he did because he just has this zest for life. And maybe when he was younger, the party thing was like the thing. But as he got older, the word party became interchangeable with just like enjoying life, living life, not necessarily like going out and getting blasted. So the party thing was almost like this. Anyways, he released an album called You're Not Alone in like 2016, 2017, 2018, something like that. It's definitely got some cornball stuff on it, but some of those messages on there, I found them at a time, one of the probably the darkest times of my life, where I was working almost. I mean, I worked a day every day for a month straight with no breaks. I was a store manager at a Guitar Center in Florida at the point, and I was working my ass off. Things at work weren't going good. Things at home weren't going super great. I was not being the best that I could be. My daughter was very young at the time, so having a young child, I know you you know what that's like with those early years. It's really can be really tricky sometimes. You kind of lose yourself sometimes and have a hard time finding bass. But I just remember towards, I guess, sort of 2018-ish, or 2017. It doesn't matter. But I tuned into a late night show. Andrew WK was on it, performing one of his new songs off of the album "You're Not Alone." "You're Not Alone." The single off of that one, that was kind of his hit from that one, was "Music is Worth Living For." Now, the message of that song is very simple: is that music is what's is worth living for. Like, if there's nothing else, music is worth living for, and that resonated with me. But what really resonated with me was sitting in my living room watching this performance on TV. The energy that was being put out, I felt through the TV. Like, I felt invigorated when I heard this message, and it was such, like I said, that was some of that light in that dark time for me. And on that album, there are spoken word pieces that he does, and one of those pieces, he says something about the light and the shadows, that we have to, as human beings, both of those things are part of our life, and we have to live with both of them. We have to live with the dark, we have to live with the light. And what are shadows but just, or no, what is darkness but just the shadows, or just the light casting shadows, basically. It's like that light is still there, even if you can't see it right now. It's just casting a shadow at the moment. There's something that's blocking that light from you. It's not going to be there forever. And hearing that was something that really got me through a really hard time in my life, where I just felt like I had no one I could turn to at that time, because I was not being, I mean, admittedly, a lot of it was on me. But that gave me some direction, and I got to go see him perform live like 2 weeks after I saw that. It was just schadenfreude, I guess. He came through the other store with his band. They needed something. The other store manager had called me because I had told him about this whole thing, about how seeing this just really gave me some energy back in my life that I was missing at the time. And the band came through, and he told them the story about how I called him about this. They gave us tickets to go see them live, and we got to go see them live. And seeing him live was probably one of the most joyful concert experiences that I've ever had. Everyone was so positive and happy and just having fun, and realizing that everything doesn't have to be so serious all the time. It's maybe okay to be a little goofy, maybe be a little corny, and just enjoy our time together while this is happening. And man, that was such a fun experience for me. But hearing him speak about that, somebody who is associated with so much like party, blah, 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 and talking about like depression and, I get down and I feel really down and all of this stuff. It was like, shit, like that was big for me at that time. Not a lot of people are familiar with that album. Not a lot of people know that album. They just know his early stuff, but that was a later album. And like I said, a lot of the passages on there are about being alone, being in darkness, being depressed, and trying to find your way out of it. So that was something that was really helpful for me in that time. So to your point, yes, there's always light. Darkness is not present. Like light has to be there. They coexist. We have to be okay with both of them. They are part of our lives, and you just have to keep moving forward, because while today may be a dark day, that sun's going to come up in the morning. You got to keep pushing forward. So that was kind of the overall message of that album that really struck with me, and just hearing you mention some of the similar themes just kind of reminded me of that.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing that. I don't think that was ridiculous at all. I think that was very awesome.
Thank you, man.
Continuing in this thread of there is always light. It's just trying to see around the shadow.
Yeah. As a parent, kids are number one, of course. I know you can relate to that. You being a dad, one of the most challenging things, probably the most challenging thing I've ever done in my life, but also one of the things that I am so happy that I've done, because what's so beautiful about having children, in my experience, is that you get to vicariously revisit the world through their eyes. Everything is new to them. Everything is amazing. Everything is the best. Everything is fresh, and you get, it resets your perspective to go, you know what? The sky is freaking cool. The moon's awesome. Grass is awesome. I like flowers. Like, all of these things are truly incredible. The things that had to come together to create us as human beings, for us to be here in this time and right now, all of those things to align for me to have been born. Like, my mom's side of the family's from Chicago. My dad's side of the family's from Alabama. What if my mom's side never moved down, right? Like, all of these crazy things had to align just perfectly. So we should be so thankful for every day that we're given, because, dude, as crappy as life can be sometimes, there's so much amazing things that we can latch onto. And having kids was such a great reminder for me of that. It brought back some of that curiosity, some of that, as adults, we get real serious, I think, a lot of the time, and we lose some of that part. And I think you have to keep some of that, because that keeps me hopeful, is I'm going to discover something new tomorrow. So that's definitely one thing. I mentioned my partner, Gloria. We've been married for 16 years, going into year 17, but 20 years total together. And a lot of times when if I just can't see the forest through the trees, right, she helps me. She gives me something. She's, reminding me of this, reminding me of that. She's supporting me. Music, if I'm feeling down, there's so much music I can go to. There's so much I could just put on, and it can reset my mind. But sometimes when you're feeling down, sometimes that music is, you need to listen to someone that's also down. You need to be able to relate and feel like you're not alone in that moment. So that gives me hope. And honestly, man, like, I do struggle. It's really funny, because a few years ago, a friend of mine asked me, how are you so happy all the time? And I was like, I'm not. It's like, I'm not happy all the time, but I'm glad that that's what you perceive. Like, at that time, I was literally struggling financially because work problems, like being out of work, was not feeling my best, was feeling lesser than, because I wasn't bringing in any really serious income to support my family. I felt like a failure in that moment. And he was like, how are you so happy all the time? And that's what's going on in my head. And I'm like, wow, wow, that's really eye-opening. But I always try. But in that moment, I was at a show, and I was there with my wife's art. So I was doing two things I love. I was enjoying music, enjoying the community of music in a space where I feel like is home to me. Why would I not be happy even with all this other shit going on right now in this moment? Yeah, dude, I'm happy as hell. Even if I'm stressed about all this stuff, there's a great band playing. There's cool people looking at my wife's art. I'm talking to people about it. We're sharing stories. I'm seeing people pick up pieces of art and like laugh and smile and interact with it. So that brings me joy and happiness a lot too, is interacting with people in that way. And we, obviously I saw you in Nashville for the Punk Rock Flea up there, and getting to go to shows and interact with people, and once again, that community, and just having that community and knowing that I can go to another freaking state, and one of my favorite bands is there. Super cool. Some friends are there, but I also get to then connect with all these other people. And even if it's just brief, and it's like, hey man, I really dig your shirt, that just little brief interactions like that, those are things that give me hope, because I do think genuinely at the end of the day, there's more good than there is bad, even though I think we get fed a lot of the bad. I think people are genuinely better than we give them credit for. There are select few that we won't get into at this point, but overall, man, that brings me joy. That brings me hope. I'm just so grateful to be. I'm grateful because I know what it's like to not have this, if that makes sense. I know what it's like to not have a scene. Montgomery, Alabama, when I lived there, that scene died when Head on the Door died. You know, I know what it's like to not have that. I know what it's like to not have community. So to have that and to have all of this going, it may not be forever, but dude, I'm fucking grateful for it right now because it brings me joy, it brings me light, it brings me hope, and invigorates me as a human. And that's why I love booking shows. That's why I love photographing bands. I love capturing those moments because, you know, I think music is sacred. I truly do. I believe music is a very sacred thing that we share with each other. And I think that going on stage is a kind of a form of magic and performing, that we're creating something from nothing and sharing it with this crowd, and we're having this energy transference. All of those things give me hope, give me joy, give me happiness whenever I'm feeling down. So there's that real long-winded answer for you.
I have a really hard time meeting people because one, I'm not good at small talk. I'm just not good at it. Like, and I think part of the reason is because I don't
Sure.
care about it. Like if I want to have a conversation with you, I want to have a conversation. Like, I just don't care about small talk. Just going back to what we were talking about earlier about performative relationships and honest relationships. Like, I want to have an honest relationship, and I'm really picky about who I want to have those honest relationships with. So a lot of times, like at shows, people come up to me frequently and like, wow, you always look so pissed off at shows. And it's not because I'm pissed off. Like, when I'm watching a band, like, I want to feel something, right? And so I'm like, all of my focus is on that band and taking in what's coming at me. It's watching the vocalist and watching the guitarist and the bass player and the drummer and the, whatever other musicians are up there, not just watching them play, but watching them interact with each other and watching them interact with me and the crowd and the music that's coming out and just absorbing that. And just the way I do that does look very closed off and looks like I'm pissed off, but I'm not. Like, I'm really just taking it all, like, just doing my best to take it all in and feel every bit of it.
Yeah, you're open to what's being presented.
Right. But when people see it, they think I'm closed off and an asshole, which is, whatever. It's okay. But in that process, like, a lot of bands I listen to, if you're looking at like the musical definition of it, like, they really aren't that good, but like, they make me feel, so even though they aren't the greatest musicians or the greatest songwriters or the greatest whatever, like, they make me feel. Like, I want to feel. And so I would much rather listen to a very poorly produced album that isn't played well or written well, but there's some honest, like, there's emotion behind it and there's feeling behind it, rather than this overly produced, widely respected album, but there's no spirit and it has no soul.
I agree.
Yeah, because it's that feeling, and it goes back to that community too, right? Yeah, no, thank you for sharing all of that. I appreciate it. We've been talking for a while, and out of respect for your time, we can start wrapping this up. But before we do that, just going into that community piece again, please share with whoever happens to listen to this how they can find you, and also go and plug your wife, because your wife is an amazing artist.
I appreciate that.
So plug yourself and how people can find you and all of your various projects, and also please share how they can find your wife. And your
we'll do.
art.
Well, thanks for having me, dude. And I want to say something. I'm glad that I feel like I am one of the people that you are picky with, and that you like to talk to and spend time with, because I always enjoy getting to see you at shows and connect with you. So I feel honored to be as part of that small group. I appreciate you, man.
Thank you.
But dude. So as far as what I do, Spirit Guardian is the music. You can find it Spotify, Bandcamp, YouTube. I have a music video out that I did with my buddy Eric from the band Ember. That music is instrumental sci-fi metal is what I call it. I have 3 albums out. All the album art is done by my wife, Gloria. So if you want to get an idea, you can check it there. Iron City Sludge on Facebook is where I post the most when it comes to shows, events that I'm doing. The Iron City Sludge. I also have a Patreon that I am sorely behind on updating. I have a digital zine that I am still working on creating. I have a couple out already that are on my Patreon. You can find it through Iron City Sludge. I'm also on Instagram and Iron City Sludge. I have a show. So I generally book metal shows is what I book, but I do also book punk bands every now and then. I definitely am going to be hitting you guys up because I have a date, but yeah, I like to book heavy shows, bands that are giving me something authentic. To your point that you're making a second ago, authenticity is, I think, as a creative person, if you're authentic, it's going to be received. So be yourself, no matter how fucking weird it is. Be your authentic self, because people are going to receive that better than they do fake stuff. But you have a show coming up January 30th with some really killer bands. You can find all the information on Iron City Sludge on Facebook. What else? I also do private photography as well, like portraiture and stuff. I've done a wedding. I've done stuff like that. That's just J.Aitken Photos. And then what else? Oh, yes, Gloria. So my wife is truly an amazing artist. I always joke that I am biased, but she genuinely is very, very good. GloriaAitkenArt.com, which is AITKEN. You can find it there. She's also on Facebook and Instagram. We typically, when we're traveling around, when we went to Nashville, that's what we were there for. We're there for the art, but I also got to cover that show, which I'll eventually be posting some more under Iron City Sludge from that. So I got to kind of cover that / also work it. And she's on Facebook, Instagram. We don't have any events officially booked right now for this year. We're going to be more selective this year just because chronic health issues with her, as well as some things going on with me. So we're going to be doing fewer shows this year for her art, but GloriaAitkenArt.com is always there. So I think I plugged everything at that point. It's a lot. I stay busy.
Okay, cool. So last 2 planned questions. The first one is we can wrap them into one. So one question, okay. 2 parts. Part A, what are you currently listening to?
Oh, that's tough. Okay, so the band that I'm listening to almost nonstop right now is the Viagra Boys. I just found out about Viagra Boys about a month ago. And speaking of authenticity, this band is so freaking weird in the best way. They list influences like Butthole Surfers and like weird bands like that. They have 4 albums out roughly, I think. The newest one's called it's Viagra Boys. They just put the A on the boys. It's really cool, but they have an album called Cave World that has some of my favorite songs on it. It's kind of punk. It has some electronic stuff in it, has a saxophone and horn player in it sometimes. It's really weird lyrically. He's all over the place. He writes things from his dog's point of view. He has a song called Uno 2 that's about his dog. It's written from the dog's point of view going to the vet. It's really weird, but they're a really interesting band. I also really like Chat Pile. It's another band that is just one of those bands that sounds like nobody else. They're harsh. They came, I think they're from Oklahoma is where they're based. They've kind of been making some waves over the past couple of years, kind of getting better known. Their last album, Cool World, it was just one of my favorite albums. It's so bleak. It's so bleak though. So like if you're in a dark place, maybe not listen to Chat Pile, maybe listen to Viagra Boys. It's a little lighter. Those 2 albums, those 2 bands are on pretty steady rotation for me right now, outside of the random things my girls want to hear in the car that are definitely not that. As far as what I think people should be listening to, listen, man, I have so many bands that I could recommend. When it comes to smaller artists, I'm going to go ahead and shout out No Asylum. I don't know if you've heard of that band.
Thank you.
One of the things that struck me from the very first show is I felt like you meant every single word that came out of your mouth. you were so just lost in the music, and I was like, yeah, this guy, like, he's feeling everything that he is saying right now. And so that comes across to me. Some of my other favorite band, I'm trying to think, I'm going to blank on it. Disincentive, as I mentioned earlier, is a great band. Horror Party out of Mississippi. That's a really cool punk band. Horror punk vibes. I'm going to have them up sometime. Triangle Fire, if you don't listen to Triangle Fire, please do. Their music is, like, as a metal dude, primarily as my background, their music is metal with punk. It's crust punk, I guess technically is what they call it. But man, they just fire on all cylinders. Seeing them live is such a cool experience. Billy Bats and the Made Men, another really great, awesome punk band. These dudes are bonkers. They do not stop. They just go from the first note. I know you.
Yeah. Very.
Oh my gosh, those guys, and they're younger dudes. I've been seeing them now for a few years, but I think for the first time I saw them, Nub Dub was like, their drummer was like 16 at the time, and man, he is just an absolute monster on drums, and they just go the whole time. Super nice dudes too. Like I said, I think the oldest one of them is maybe 22 at this point, or 21, still pretty young, but out there doing the thing. I'm gonna go shout out to some of my bands I have coming up. Hiraeth, it's just Hiraeth. If you're into bands like I Hate God, Crowbar, any of that 90s sludge doom, this is a band out of the Calera / Montevallo area that sound and look straight up like they're from that. These dudes are still in high school. They absolutely rip. I've got Palaces coming from Atlanta, and their new stuff is really cool and really different. They've recorded the new album with Mastodon, so definitely check that out. Man, I could just go on and on. Towering Above, Pleasant Valley, Crimson Mask. I'm going to forget so many bands, but just support local when you can, man, because like all these other bands, there's so many cool bands out there, but there are so many damn good bands in this scene creating original music from Alabama and representing our state, or from other states and surrounding areas, that are just so good. And I say, get out to a local show, because when you get to a local show, you can literally go, you could stand right next to the band. You could be so close. You could touch them. You can talk to them. You can interact with them. They are human beings. And that experience is, to me, one of the absolute best experiences. And when I started going to shows here in Birmingham in about 2019, seeing all that, experiencing that, that's what made me fall back in love again, because I didn't have a scene before that. But going to those shows, at True Story, which has become kind of my second home where I run my shows out of, man, just being able to see it and see all of this energy and all of this authenticity and all of this just genuine music being created from whatever genre, whatever style, it doesn't matter. It was all authentic. It's coming from an authentic place, and just seeing all that in person at a small local show instead of like a big venue. Don't get me wrong, those shows are cool too sometimes, but those small local shows, the energy is almost unmatched at any of those shows.
No, I agree. So currently I've been listening to a lot of folk metal.
Nice.
Which I don't have much experience with at all. My child has gotten into it. He's 11.
Yeah.
As much as I have worked to get him into punk and hardcore, it hasn't happened. He likes Weird Al and he likes folk metal.
Okay.
Which, whatever. Like, I don't, like just like something. I don't care. But I have no experience with folk metal. So I've been trying to educate myself on this. There's one band, I think it's his favorite, like, folk metal band. And I hope I'm using the right term. I think they're called like Wind Rose or Wild Rose, or I think they're from Italy. Okay. But they all dress up like they're dwarves from like Tolkien dwarves. Yeah. And their songs are all about like the Misty Mountain and
all right,
like,
got some dwarf metal.
Tolkien, like Tolkien dwarvish stuff.
Yeah, dude.
But they have one really catchy song called like Diggy Diggy Hole.
I gotta check it out.
It is so amazingly catchy. I mean, it's borderline genius how catchy this song is. But the chorus is like, we are dwarves and we're digging a hole, diggy diggy hole.
I've heard this. I actually have heard that.
It's spectacular. So again, I'm doing my best to learn about folk metal or dwarven metal, or
sure.
Again, I don't know the terms, and I apologize for that. But I'm doing my best to learn about that. That's what I'm listening to a lot of right now. One band out of San Diego, not punk, but I definitely think they have some punk roots, and they're definitely, in my opinion, punk adjacent. They're called the Neighborhood Kids. They're a hip hop group, but if you listen to them, you can hear the influences, and and there's definitely some punk thread influences in there, but they're very political. They're very socially minded. I want to say they're all Hispanic. So, they sing a lot about immigration issues and stuff.
Right.
And there's two vocalists, and I don't know either of their names, but there's a male and female vocalist. And one of their songs is called Kids Out of Cages, or Get the Kids Out of the Cages.
Kids in the Cages. I'm Googling it so I can listen to it later.
And the vocals come out like a machine gun. It's like they break each word into the syllables. So each syllable is like da, 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 da. And it's just the delivery and the way the two vocalists play off of each other. But then they just released another song which is completely different. It's much more melodic. It has a good flow, good groove to it. It's called, I want to say it's called Life is a Movie, or Life is Like a Movie, or My Life is a Movie, something like that. Very different feel. So it's much more laid back and calm and groove, and almost more like a Bone Thugs groove to it. Yeah, so more melodic. And then one of the other things they're doing right now on their social media, so Instagram is mainly what I follow them on, is each day they're doing like a freestyle of the day.
Oh, that's cool.
And a couple days ago they did they took the musical track from Liquid Swords from the Jizza, old Wu-Tang guy. Mm-hmm. They took that instrumental track and rhymed over it and just
that's cool.
Freestyled over it, and it was great. So yeah, the Neighborhood Kids. They also just did they did it a Tiny Desk concert.
Oh snap! I love those.
So that's really cool to check out. And I believe they also just within the last month or two wrapped up a tour opening for Tom Morello.
Definitely gonna check that out, dude. And to punk and hip hop and all of this stuff, dude, a lot of those messages come from the same place. A lot of it's anti-authority. A lot of it does come from the same place. So I think it's 100% adjacent. Right. I mean, if you hear any interviews with the guys that were coming up in the scene, in the 80s, when metal was breaking big and punk was big and hip hop was breaking, all of those dudes, they were cool. Mostly with each other, and it was all the same thing. And I have a love for hip hop as well. I always have, and one of my favorite bands. I've loved Run the Jewels. That's one of my favorite kind of hip hop groups out. They have a really great song that came out on Run the Jewels 4 called "Walking in the Snow," and Killer Mike just drops some absolute bombs of verses on it, dude. It's just, and it's about the kids in cages part is very relevant to that song. And the stuff they do, a lot of their attitude on their early stuff was almost so aggressive. It was borderline metallic because it was just so aggressive. So when you're talking about punk and all of these things, that's just a way to put something inside of a neat little box, when reality is right. There's elements of all of this in so many different things. There's punk and country, and some country artists, there's.
Oh yeah, if you look at the outlaw country stuff,
dude, yeah.
There's a newer. I'm going to label her as outlaw country. Her name is Emerson Wolf, and Wolf is spelled WOOLF.
Okay.
I think it's Emerson Wolf and the Wishbones.
Okay.
But she's the newest thread that I've come across in this recent thread of amazing female outlaw country Americana-esque things. Yeah. So with Nikki Lane, Jenny Don't and the Spurs, but Emerson Wolf and the Wishbones. And I don't want to take away from any of these people saying, oh, they're and lumping them into punk category, but like you were saying, there's definitely like we rub shoulders with a bunch of different scenes.
Yes.
And I think influences crossover.
100%. I think punk is an ethos. I think it's kind of a belief in a way. It's a way you carry yourself and the way you treat others and all of that. So it's not just 3 chords in the truth or whatever. It is more complex than that. So you can have all of these influences with all of this, and we're all a sum of all of our influences. At the end of the day, I like to think of our brains like a giant strainer, especially as a creative. It's like we take in all of this stuff, and then there's certain stuff that seeps through that stays and is kind of part of our DNA as creatives, as artists, as whatever. But it's all a sum of all these things we've picked up over life, whether it be musical influences, whether it be personal influences, whether it be life experience. We're all just a sum of that, and we're doing our best to formulate it and package it in some way. So yeah, you're going to find elements of all kinds of different stuff. I mean, dude, I have tuba in some of my songs, and it's metal primarily. So, and that's that Chicago influence from when I was a kid that's coming back around in there. So yeah, man, I didn't just be yourself, create whatever, even if it's shitty, express yourself, be good to others. Don't be afraid to ask for help. Go to a local show. If you see a guy that's looking scary, I bet you he's probably the nicest person there. So, those are some of my parting words.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Yeah,
and with that, we're going to go ahead and wrap it up. Again, thank you, Jeremy. I really appreciate you taking the time.
Yeah, thank you, man.
To talk with me tonight. I really appreciate it. Again, like I said at the beginning, I'm not a professional. I'm sure you have a lot of criticisms of what you just heard. Please tell me. Like, I would love to know what I could do better. And it would be super awesome if you're like, hey, not only can I tell you what you can do better, but I can help you learn how to edit effectively. Like, that would be great. I'd appreciate it. If you want to follow me in places, email punklovecompassion, all one word, at yahoo.com. Facebook is Punk Love and Compassion. Instagram is at Punk Love Compassion. Shoot me a message. I'd love to hear from you. If you think you have a great story that you'd like to share, because one, we all have stories because we all struggle. And I think everybody has a voice and everybody's voice should be heard. Shoot me an email. I'd also love to hear your criticisms beyond just like, you suck, you should give up. Like, tell me why I suck, because I can't get better unless you let me know. Or if you're like, hey, great job, I appreciate what you're doing, I'd love to hear that too. But yeah, until next time, I'm Bo. Thank you again, Jeremy. It's Punk Love Compassion. I appreciate you all.